during the webinar, but I also hope this will lead to many conversations with you all offline moving forward. So in a nutshell, GlobalGiving is the first and largest global crowdfunding community. We connect nonprofits, donors, and companies in nearly every country around the world. GlobalGiving was started really from an idea back in 1997 from two executives at the World Bank who were tasked with creating a way for the World Bank to offer grants to some smaller nonprofit organizations around the world in some kind of a democratic way. They created a wonderful program called the Development Marketplace, which was an in-person event at the World Bank where nonprofit leaders could present on their work and solicit funding from the bank. And the program ran for a couple of years. It was a great success, but there was this sense that more could be done, that this opportunity could be made available to more organizations. And couldn't we take advantage of this new thing called the internet back in 1997 that was just gaining traction and making this available 24 hours a day to everyone around the world. So with that idea, our co-founders, Dennis and Mari, left the bank and started GlobalGiving in 2002. And today we make it possible for local organizations to access the funding tools, training, and support they need to raise more money and to become more effective to make our world a better place. So in the last 14 years, GlobalGiving has worked with thousands of nonprofits in 165 countries. I made this slide a couple of weeks ago, and so the numbers was a little bit stale. So we've actually helped organizations raise over $220 million from more than 500,000 unique donors in 138 companies. At GlobalGiving, we focus on working with our nonprofit partners to raise funds for specific projects, and to date, we've supported well over 14,000 unique projects. About half of our partners are US-based 501c3 nonprofit organizations. The other half are based all around the world, or are registered all around the world. So we do work with international and US nonprofits. We are also a nonprofit ourselves, so registered in the United States. So all donations made to one of our partner organizations through our platform are tax deductible for US donors, which is a huge advantage for nonprofits registered elsewhere. We also have a sister organization in the United Kingdom, GlobalGiving UK, and any UK-based donors are eligible to take advantage of the gift aid promotion that the UK government, which matches donations at 25%. They're made by the UK taxpayer. So GlobalGiving provides tools and resources to help our partners raise money from their own network. But what really makes GlobalGiving different from other standard crowdfunding platforms is that we are also working to bring new donors and funding opportunities to our partners. We have a business development team that works with those 138 countries around the world to help bring new donors and new resources to our partners. So they do things like sell gift cards to corporations. So a corporation might buy $500,000 in GlobalGiving gift cards for $100 each and give them out to their employees and their clients. And those employees and clients will log on to GlobalGiving and redeem their gift card for a project of their choice. So this is a donor that likely doesn't know any specific organization, but they're finding out about them through GlobalGiving and actually donating money. We also use the projects on our site to power employee giving portals. A lot of companies offer matching programs or other ways for their employees to get involved with philanthropy, and they can use our API to power their own employee giving portals. And we also manage a good number of corporate grant programs. So corporations will come to us and ask us, they don't want to develop an entire grant-making staff, and we have the expertise in doing the vetting and the due diligence, the reporting, the disbursements. So they'll just ask us to manage their grant program. So a lot of dollars flow to our partners through these corporate grant programs. We also have a marketing communications team that is regularly conducting outreach to donors in our broader network to bring new visitors to the sites, to visit projects, and hopefully make donations. Organizations on the platform, our nonprofit partners, also have access to a wide variety of tools to help them in their own fundraising. We offer, in addition to the standard project page, there's mobile giving, text to give, recurring donation options, fundraiser pages, so supporters of organizations can set up peer-to-peer fundraising pages. And we also offer to every partner a back-end platform that helps maintain relationships with donors for the long term. So you can send reports on your project status, you can send your thank you notes, you can really do all the management and tracking of the data and insights about your donors right built into the Global Giving system. So it's great for smaller nonprofits who aren't quite ready to invest in a big donor management system. They can actually use Global Giving for their donor management system. But I think perhaps what really sets us apart, and this will be kind of what I'll focus on later in my presentation, is the training and support we provide. So we don't just offer a platform and say, run with it. We want to be there every step of the way with our partners to help them raise more money and become more effective. So we provide tools and trainings to support our partners in acquiring and retaining donors. We also offer more intensive, what we call academies. We have a fundraising academy and a social impact academy that are month-long intensive training opportunities, all done online, to help organizations become more effective and raise more money. We offer free one-on-one consultation where our staff basically becomes a fundraising consultant for our partners virtually or in person. And we are very, very responsive to our partners over email, phone, and live chat, just really making sure we provide the best experience possible and really become not a service, but a true partner for our nonprofit partners. There's no cost for nonprofits to join or access our tools or use our services. Instead, Global Giving charges a 15% fee to donors when they make a donation. If someone donates $10 to a project, we explain at checkout that Global Giving will retain $1.50, and $8.50 will go on to the partner organization. The donors are given an opportunity to cover the fee at that moment, and most choose to cover all or part of it. We are, at the same time, we are driving additional funding to our partners that makes up for the fee. So for example, last year, Global Giving drove an additional $9.5 million to nonprofits through our own marketing efforts, matching funds we provide, corporate partner donations, bonus grants, and gift card redemptions. That's money that didn't come from the organization's own network or their own fundraising efforts. It's just a benefit of being part of our marketplace. So if you actually account that extra funding, the net cost for a typical partner is actually 0% fee. In fact, last year, a typical nonprofit not only paid a 0% fee, but got about $436 extra just in these additional funding opportunities from Global Giving. For nonprofits that are interested in joining Global Giving, it's an online process. It takes just a few, 10, 15 minutes if you're a U.S. nonprofit, maybe 20, 30 if you're an international nonprofit to apply online. We review the application within 30 days, usually much sooner. After the application is approved, an organization can log in and post their first project, and then you're kind of off and running. You can start fundraising right away on your own. You can come to us for support. We'll start to offer matching campaigns, help motivate your donors, and you are ready to go. I'm going to move on now to how we support grant makers. I encourage you, if you have questions about Global Giving, to note them down in the chat box, or save them, and I'll share my email at the end, and we can talk offline. So I'm really going to get into now what my role is at Global Giving, which is managing our Strategic Partners program. Global Giving Strategic Partners are funders, grant makers, conveners, people who are working closely with a network of nonprofits. This is where I really start to get into my role supporting grant makers. And it's a nice fit for me because prior to joining Global Giving, close to 3 years ago, I worked for 6 years at a small foundation as a grant maker. I worked at the Global Fund for Children as a program officer. And that really gave me a good insight onto how Global Giving can really support grant makers, because I knew what would have been helpful for me to have from Global Giving at the time when I was a grant maker. So I'm gonna focus the next part of the presentation on how we work with grant makers, and I'm gonna focus on 3 specific areas. The first is what I call softening the no. So I know from being a grant maker that the hardest parts of a funder's life, the worst part of a funder's day, is when they have to say no to a potential grantee, particularly if it's a grantee who's already invested time in an application or follow-up questions. But even if it's just someone who submitted a letter of interest online or just a preliminary contact, it's still no fun for a grant maker to say no. But I found it was always easier and appreciated if, along with the no, you also provide the grant applicant with some additional resources or opportunities to consider. So I used to send out links to donor databases for organizations in my region, other funders I'd recommend they talk to, training opportunities, and I always included a link to Global Giving. Because Global Giving works with nonprofits in any country working on any issue, we accept applications online 24 hours a day, every day of the year, and we provide this training and support opportunity that's all free for nonprofits. We are a great place to send organizations that your members aren't able to fund. So it really helps to soften that no. The second way we really support grant makers is by this free training opportunity and what I call leverage. We offer lots of virtual training for organizations to build their capacity for online fundraising, and then also encourage them to put those skills to the test in the Global Giving campaign. So we're a great resource for grant makers to link their grantees to for free training opportunities. We also, when I was in grant making, there was a big emphasis put on leverage, which was money not from our grant that we were helping connect to for our partners. So we wanted to say it wasn't just our $20,000 grant, but we also helped them connect with 2 new funders and this training opportunity, and that becomes what our larger impact is of the relationship. So at Global Giving, I could provide the grant makers we work with custom links, custom landing pages that help us track referrals from their grantee network. I can then provide regular reports on the activity of your partners, of a grant maker's partners on Global Giving. So it makes it easy to really quantify funding leveraged from Global Giving for a set of grantees. This can be really useful, especially if you're in an intermediary foundation and you're working to justify your involvement in the value you add to an organization beyond just delivering the grant funds. And finally, I want to talk about another sad part of a funder's life that I think we can help make easier, which is offboarding support. When grant makers have organizations that are preparing to leave a funding portfolio, Global Giving is great. It's a great time to connect those organizations to Global Giving because we can help them create an individual fundraising strategy so they can begin to diversify their funding in preparation for the exit of a funder. Grant makers, I know I used to feel better knowing that my grantees were in good hands, that they had allies and ideally funders who were going to be working with them even after we had to cut off our funding. So this is another great support. The average Global Giving partner in 2015 raised about $11,000 on the website through their own fundraising efforts and our marketing and corporate dollars. Some organizations raise much more, tens of thousands of dollars, and some raise less, a few hundred. But whatever it is, it's going to be something that's going to help an organization feel like, yes, they're not going to go it alone when their funder exits. And similar to the previous slide, on the leverage piece, all of this is because it all happens online. It's all trackable, and I can send custom reports to our grantmaker partners about what their former grantees are up to on the platform, what trainings they've been taking, how successful they've been in campaigns, and how much funding they've raised on the platform. So I'm gonna leave it there. I just want to offer that I'm excited to talk to all of you, but I'd really love to talk to your members. I think we have a lot to offer to grant makers. So I'm happy to do a similar type of a presentation in webinar format, in person, over the phone, for your grant maker members, or include a blurb in your newsletter to get the word out to your members about the types of services we can offer. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but everything we do for grant makers is completely free of charge, because effectively they're helping us locate new global giving partners. So it's a real win-win for us. I have my email down here at the bottom, in Gale@globalgiving.org. Feel free to email me, and we can set up a conversation to move things forward. And I will pause now for questions. So I'll actually just let it sit on that last slide so we can note my email down.
Hi, Michael. We just unmuted everyone, so I have some questions here, but if anyone wants to verbally ask any questions, this would be the time. So in the meantime, we have a question. Raquel?
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Hello, fine, thank you, Raquel.
Fine. Hi. Thank you for your presentation, and it was wonderful to understand how do you work exactly. And I just have a question. I may didn't get it. If for grant making, if donors, if you also work with donors from multilateral organizations, international organizations such as BED and World Bank, or only from the private sector?
Yeah, it's primarily individual donors and the corporate sector, but there are examples of when we've worked with multilaterals or other funders, but usually on very specific projects. So we had, trying to think of an example, I know we've done a couple things with the U.S. State Department funding specific initiatives. Sometimes it's around training programs for nonprofits because we do so much training around online effectiveness. But also some funding opportunities directly to nonprofits. Sometimes those organizations bring us already a list of nonprofits and say we want to work with these folks, and so then we can vet them and disperse to them. But sometimes they're choosing partners that are already our members to benefit from the programming. But I would say 95% of the funding dollars are from individual donors or corporations, not kind of multilaterals.
Great, thank you. And then my second and last question: is there time, Sarah? Do we have time for a second question?
Yes, of course. Yes, we have time.
Thanks. And Michael, the second question is: do you have some metrics for the funds you've seen regarding causes and continents? I mean, and I can give you an example about what is going on in Brazil, because after 2010, we've seen that the international cooperation, and you can consider in there then individuals, private sector, international organizations, they kind of left the country due to the development we had. And we've seen much international funders much more oriented to Africa than to Latin America. So my question would be, I don't know if you have some metrics regarding causes, and we've seen it's been very hard to fundraise it for environmental issues here, and it's much more easier to fundraise for education. Do you have this kinds of perspectives you could share with us?
Sure. So I do have specific stats that I'd be happy to pull for you. And if you want specifics just about Brazil or around specific themes, just drop me an email and I can actually run those numbers. But I would say in general, what we find is that because we are we're project-based, and because most of our donors, even if it's a corporation, it's an individual making a decision. So individuals tend to be motivated by different types of causes than perhaps a foundation would be. So we find that projects dealing with children, education, women and girls, and actually animals are the ones that get the most traction on global giving. Projects that have to do with kind of like longer term systemic issues, climate change, economic development. It's not that they don't do well. There are some great projects in those categories on our site, but it's more difficult, I think, sometimes to, we know that a donor only spends 5 seconds looking at a project page before deciding to donate or not. So the projects that can be explained very quickly for our lack of patience in today's, I think, internet society are the ones that do the best. But there are ways to make even a bigger picture project to get it down to a story about a single person or a group of people that can make it compelling. Regarding country, we actually for the first time this year we now have more projects in India than in the United States. After those two countries, the leaders for numbers of projects right now on the site are Kenya, Nepal, Uganda, Guatemala, the Philippines, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. Right now, let's see if I can see how many we have in Brazil. We just have 28 projects in Brazil. That being said, Brazil, I think after the US, the UK, and Canada and India, I think Brazil is in 5th or 6th place for donors on the site, becoming a country that actually is donating, and not just to Brazilian projects, although primarily to Brazilian projects, but also to projects based all over the world, which is exciting to see. And I think it wasn't true on our platform even just 3 or 4 years ago. It was really heavy US and UK donors, and now we're seeing a lot of Indian and Brazilian donors coming onto the platform as well.
Thank you, Michael. Super interesting. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Are there any more questions for Michael? We have one on our end that was sent to us, and we have a member here in our office who just did crowdfunding herself, but through a Brazilian platform. And she was curious to ask what's the difference between GlobalGiving and maybe some of the main difference between GlobalGiving and some of the other crowdfunding platforms that are out there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the two things I always talk about, one is that most platforms, that's what they are. It's a platform, it's a tool, and there are wonderful platforms out there that provide excellent fundraising tools. GlobalGiving does provide great tools, but we also actually provide donors. So the great thing about GlobalGiving is the funding comes from a combination of our partners' own network, but then also donors we're attracting to the project through our marketing efforts and through our corporate partnerships. So that's the one thing, is we're actually driving donors to projects, not just providing tools to help an organization fundraise. And the second thing is really, I would say, the training, support, and kind of individual attention. There aren't a lot of platforms that put their phone number on the website and say, call us with questions. I spent the first hour of my morning this morning talking to someone who called in who wanted to talk about their strategy for an upcoming campaign. And that's just the kind of organization we are. We want to be true partners with our members and really be in this fundraising journey with them. That being said, there are great advantages to working with local platforms also. I know there are some wonderful platforms in Brazil. The biggest advantage, I would say, is language compatibility. GlobalGiving is entirely in English, and it's a big challenge for us working globally, but we find that because something like 90% of our donors are still English speaking, we need the project page content to be in English so that the donor can understand what they're donating to. But it does make it harder working with partners who would prefer to transact in a different language. So there's definitely a time when an international platform like GlobalGiving is a good choice, but don't want to take anything away from some of the local platforms that are doing great work and can provide that language support.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. I'll give everyone a few last seconds in case anyone wants to send a question in or verbally ask a question. Okay, great. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. And we will put this webinar online at www.wingsweb.org. And please feel free to contact Michael directly with his emails on the screen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, Wings, for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Michael. Bye.
Bye. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you went well. I liked the questions that came at the end.
Yeah, you know, our one of our members here, or one of our employees here, is going to Ghana and use crowdfunding, so she's specifically interested.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thanks again for the opportunity. I hope we can do more things together in the future.
Yeah, of course. And we had, you know, a fair amount of people registered, and I'm looking here now, and there's some people from the Middle East and Europe and Africa. So this might not have been the best time, and they signed up so that they could receive notification about the recorded webinar.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do that a lot myself.
Exactly. So, I mean, this will be a great resource for people.
Cool. And it will live on the Wings website also?
It will be. It will be on the Wings website. When we get it up, I'll personally email you with the link.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. This was great.
All right. Great, Michael. See you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.